I still really didn't know that Windy Hill housed 116 families locally in Middleburg, the Plains, and Marshall. That fact is extraordinary and something important that I think each of us should know. They are people that work and serve alongside us.
I do custodial work. I started with Tim Demas, a lawyer, in 1996, and it just went from there. Come home and just enjoy myself and look out the window, and I just love the view. I've lived here 16 years and I still look around and say it's mine, I enjoy it.
I work at the Upper Crust Bakery, so I'm always around town. So 2023, I moved there to the cottage. Very cozy and just cute, and it's enough for me. I was thankful that we got to Windy Hill because being out on your own, things get pretty expensive, so sometimes you have to choose what you're gonna pay for. Whether you pay for rent or food, that stress is lifted up. You don't have to choose as much.
When I sat next to Toby last spring, we had this conversation about his childhood living at Windy Hill, no running water, no indoor plumbing. And he said all of this without rancor, just describing with a big smile on his face, sledding down hills and where he and his brother would gather wood for the wood stove in their cottage, and that life took him off to New York, getting married and having a daughter, and then coming back now and living in one of these renovated cottages and what it meant to him. He had a washer and dryer, he has his own kitchen, his own bathroom, a 2-bedroom cottage. It just clearly meant the world to him. And it was deeply moving for me that he had achieved what he had achieved growing up here in Middleburg. And then our town welcomed him back with open arms in much better shape than what his childhood had been like.
Because we didn't have no housing for the poor people. They're gonna be putting in new stoves, new refrigerators in all these remodeled houses. I'm glad that they have made the effort, see, because all of these houses here were from old horse barns.
Just total darkness. There's no electricity, no plumbing, no anything. And it was just shocking to me that in a community like this one, that those conditions could exist.
We were still living without indoor plumbing. And then when Mrs. Llewellyn came along for the Windy Hill Foundation, I said, okay, this is going somewhere.
Started on a very small scale and obviously escalated to the 310 units. Rennie Llewellyn was still around when I was on the board, and she's the one that got this whole thing started.
One day she was sitting at the entrance to Windy Hill, picking up a young man that she was helping, and she sat and looked at the situation of the houses along Windy Hill Road, 12 families, together served by 4 outhouses and 2 cold water spigots. You had to carry your water home in a jar or a bucket. The road was dirt, and some of the floors of the homes were dirt. And she said, basically, this isn't acceptable in my adopted country, and certainly not in my hometown.
There were many people in the community who really wanted to get involved. They didn't want to see people living in those conditions anymore.
They just started one by one moving people in a trailer.
You know, as a 12-year-old, you say, oh, this is wonderful. And then when the first house was being rehabilitated, it was just like, oh, exciting. It's like, okay, the future's gonna be good.
They would work on your house and remodel it. And boy, when we got back into it, it was such a blessing. You had all the things that you never had for life. And I think I was like 18 years old when I first got my place.
When I think back to what was there before and the dilapidated houses that were there,
Those in the social services community and the police community said that prior to the renovation, it was the worst housing left in Loudoun County. Older folks, mostly African Americans, who had served our community for decades were suddenly finding themselves without a home. They could not even afford the lower rents that we had been able to provide by tax credits. So from that day to this, Windy Hill has subsidized the actual rents so that they can afford to live there, subsidized that difference between what little bit they have that they can contribute and the actual rent itself. That subsidy has always been in the neighborhood of $100,000 a year or more, and I know of no other property in Loudoun County where that's the case. And I'm happy to say that every one of the 20 units at Levis Hill House was given a $40,000 donation to support the creation of that unit. That just shows how special Middleburg is when it comes to taking care of the folks in our community that have served it for so long.
Wanted to be there for them. I was only on the board for a short period of time, but I didn't have to be on the board to help out. I enjoy going over to Levis Hill House and sitting out on the porch and talking with the gentlemen there that I knew and some of the women I knew and their families.
So we have electricity. We don't have to worry about food. I can take from my own food, but if you don't, there's plenty of food. All you have to do is tell the people in the office that you need this and that, and you need that, and you get it.
Our resident services team is led by Michelle Lacaze, who's, one-woman dynamo. I'm pretty sure if you sat her down and put a notebook in front of her, Michelle could write down the name of every resident at Windy Hill. She comes from an extraordinary background, is multilingual, and helps connect our residents to the services that they need and walks them through the process.
I remember sitting on my porch. She's like, "Hi, how are you?" And I was like, "Can I talk to you for a minute? Like, I'm just, there's something going on." And she's like, of course, like, we'll take care of you. We're gonna figure out, we're gonna get the help you need. At that moment, as she was walking around, you know how some things happen for a reason, and she was just there when I needed her.
Emergency fund needs that we have. When a car breaks down or when someone loses a job, just a month's pay can completely derail a family.
At that time, their father was in an accident. He fell at work. It took him out of work. I was a stay-at-home mom, so I was like, we have to figure something out.
The education funds that we provide to families, these don't just pay for preschool expenses, they also pay for childcare costs to help our single moms and working families.
I remember working and taking my CNA class at the same time, and I was like, this is gonna pay off. Like, I can do this. Without Windy Hill, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I wouldn't have been able to take my CNA. I wouldn't have been able to, because I couldn't afford it at that point when I really needed it. You're there when you need somebody.
Some of our residents' children have received support right through college. Those boys have graduated with honors from every school they've attended. Their oldest son is working at a bank in Middleburg now. Their middle son is an engineering student at George Mason and is about to graduate. And their mom said to me, "I may never own my own home, but because of Windy Hill, I think my children will one day."
The future is bright. Someone needs help, they'll reach out and help, even if you don't ask for it.
If they need to go to a doctor or if they need a little education on the side.
I don't know who gets the credit for naming one of our programs within education Nest to Wings. It really is emblematic of offering support for our littlest residents. We're the Nest. We provide this safe, decent housing, this nest, so that some of the birds can fly. And maybe they stay nearby, and maybe they are fortunate enough to go on to college and move on and live elsewhere. But that nest is still there for those that need it. And that's the goal, is to provide the nest and the resources to fly. We had a lot of deferred maintenance. Now I'm so proud to say that we've restored all the cottages on Windy Hill Lane. I think we just have one more to do. We have another area of focus, which is Barton House. Our beloved Levis Hill House, which is where our seniors live. We have 20 units there. We have about $100,000 of repairs that need to be done there this year. So as we rotate through our 116 homes in 3 communities, something is always breaking and something will always need repair. We have an amazing staff led by Eloise, a property manager that is so attentive and so careful with our funds that we've been given. The board with whom Mark and I are privileged to work this year is unlike any that I have ever served. This one is uniquely effective and deeply, deeply committed. I was thinking last week why serving Windy Hill was so important to me. The recession of the 1970s hit and our family lost our home. We lived in rental homes pretty much from then on throughout my parents' divorce, and thankfully with the help of my grandmother. who lived by the maxim, without probably knowing it, that all boats rise when the tide comes out. Now I get to be that grandmother, helping to ensure that our fellow neighbors' boats are moored next to mine.
The quality of life and getting a good job and maintaining your home and just seeing that, like, okay, the future's gonna be good, and have that foundation